President Bola Ahmed Tinubu tax reform bills has been under and received strong rejections, opposition, criticism ever since it was introduced, and a lot of concerns coming from the northern states, and had a lot of argument. Of course, we'll try as much as possible to extract what are the developments so far regards to tax reforms, the concerns about the VAT, the concern about the derivations, and Northerners saying there was no proper consultation. The President advised last week that the Senate should meet with the Ministry of Justice to work together to see how they can resolve all of these gray areas. And then the Senate also set up a committee to hear back what the people are saying. And even the Senate President had to say, the Senate should not be blackmailed, or the Senate should not be pressured, to doing what they feel are right. And I just try as much as possible to carry on the right processes of consultation and seeing how we can meet to resolve all of these gray areas. And then what are really the gray areas and concern of the Northerners in respect to these bills? The SG, the Secretary to the federal government, is making some move to resolve all of the opposition coming from the North. And that development is seen where people are now asking questions about if that will resolve all of the concerns. And now that it looks that they have altered the process diplomatically from the Senate and the conditions of the President that have been given to the Ministry of Justice and NGF, that those are really paying attention. Would that leads to removal of some parts and clauses in the bills so as to be able to resolve the consent from all of the parties and interests in respect to these bills. All of that is a major concern. On the program this morning, we explain these areas by a legal practitioner. Dr. Oke Eziokwu is live here on the program to explain this development. Good morning, Doctor. Thanks so much for being part of the program. The last time we were here, we were looking at tax reforms, and from there to there have been few developments. But first, let me get your attention to Naira. It looks that Naira is gaining some momentum and strength. Is it temporary joy, or does it mean that we're getting to the days where probably the CBN's reformations is getting us in towards the better days? What is your reaction first on that?
Oh, for sure, the government is making effort. We're all seeing the effort they're making, trying to show up the value of the Naira. But the free fall of supposedly of the dollar we saw in the last couple of days appears cosmetic. It appears cosmetic because we're all aware that Nigerians who are abroad, who are living outside our shores, are coming back for Christmas and other things. It's obvious that foreign currencies are chasing all the Nairas in circulation. So for sure, they are coming in with dollar, because if you want to go to your village, for instance, and you get to Abuja and you want to visit your village, are you going home with dollars? If you give them dollar, of what use is it for them? So what we are seeing is just a natural reaction. Without prejudice to whatever government is doing to show up the value of the Naira, the immediate fall we've witnessed in the last few days of the dollar, I suspect, must have to do with the quantum of dollar coming to Nigeria because of those who want to spend their Christmas in Nigeria.
It looks that we'll get to find out subsequently after this festive period what happens to Naira. But the 1,500 about being projected at the market is still what is a concern. But let's swiftly get into the conversation this morning. From the last time you were here and now, there are a lot of development in respect to these bills. What have you heard, people saying about issues of the reformations of tax?
Well, the truth of the matter is that there's apprehension here and there. Regrettably, we are talking of north-south in our polity now, and it's an unfortunate situation. We are talking of something that has to do with our national life, encompassing everybody. The tax thing is not one man's thing. So, and now that the politicians have succeeded in drawing a line north-south, I don't know, it's not good for our polity. Secondly, I want to say that government appears to have at least listened to the cries of those who appear not to understand exactly the nitty-gritty of the bills in question. Because part of the problem was it didn't seem like so many people even saw the bill, went through the bill. Somebody just flew a kite about the negative aspects of it and attached it to this north-south thing, and it became the vogue. And every other person had to queue up along that line, and it was unfortunate. Now that the debate has gotten to the level it has gotten to, so many people are now looking for this bill to at least look at it and see what they look like. The Wedele panel or committee that came up with the bills and all that, they did a good job. And like I told one of my friends, if you know you are against that bill, don't listen to Wedele, because the moment you listen to him, you kill him. You understand? He has his points. He did a great job in coming up with that. But like I said when we met last, I still believe that it was necessary government at least sensitize the people to the extent that they will understand exactly how it affects them. Then again, for those who are playing politics with it, it's not good, it's not healthy for us. The good thing that has happened is that they have set up a committee led by Senator Comrade Abamoro to look at the whole thing, probably engage in public debate or whatever they want to do. Abamoro, I know, is a grassroots politician. He's somebody who identifies so much with the downtrodden. You understand? So I am sure that at the end of the day, we could just be having something that looks like an acceptable document, as it were, that can fly. I mean, with everybody in the country and all of that.
Do you feel that the president may be pressured for the withdrawal of this bill? Does it look that way? Though it has
I'm not seeing that bill being withdrawn. If government is going to do anything, probably tinker with one or two provisions, but these are not fundamental enough. I mean, whatever, as far as I'm concerned, the foundation for the whole thing, let me tell you, Mike, you can't get meaningful development in the country without disruptions, especially in our own system, where there are pockets of personal interest, group interest, regional interest, and the rest of them. All of them would naturally come to bear. So without disruptions, which is exactly what these tax bills are coming to do, they will disrupt a lot of things. So many people are not paying taxes in this country. So many people have not been captured in this country. So many people are living on government patronage and nobody is accounting for anything from them. People are lifting money from government and the rest of them, and they're not paying taxes on them. So there will be disruptions because those of them who have not been paying bills or paying taxes will now be in the front burner. The radar will be on them. And as long as that is the situation, you expect the kind of bringbacks we are having all over the place.
The opposition is really coming from the north, and those are really very concerned over issues, content. Why the bill? Yes, it's to harmonize taxes and also create room for addressing the multi-taxation systems we have in the country. I would have raised concern over derivations and issue of VAT sharing. If we know that we have the north and the south, sometimes what happens in the north might not really be what happens in the south, and what happens in the south might not be what happens in the north. How do we manage that interest? Because it looks like it's not just about the criticism. That was why I asked, because it looks like if the president is so much pressured or criticized, he may have a rethink of withdrawing that, because every other thing is fantastic, according to, some of even the northerners that have spoken. Every other thing is fantastic, but
yes,
that particular clause is having a concern. Do we get to the point of depriving one part of the country just to get a national bill done?
there's no part of the country that is being deprived, as far as I'm concerned. I'm not sure that's the intendment of those that prepared the bill, that they have to deliberately deprive any section of the country from benefiting from the tax regime. No, I don't think so. That would be a blackmail. But what I think, like I said last time, is that it is high time governors and the managers of states in our federation begin to look inward on how to generate money, generate resources, without really banking on everything Abuja to go and collect money at the end of the month and all of that. There is no state in this country actually that you don't have things you can fall back on. But over time, we've learned to lean on Abuja that nobody even makes, so many of them don't make effort to work out some things internally to cushion this kind of disruption we are envisaging now. You understand? So, fiscal federalism, which I think it appears that's where the government is driving at, presupposes that what is in your soil is what you live on. Not totally, but at least a great percentage of it should come to you. And that's exactly what the whole thing is trying to manifest to. That's what we're thinking. So, but I know again that with the kind of debate that is ongoing, I can tell you again that one or two of my friends who actually resisted, who was actually up in arms against this bill, by last week, he has changed his mind and was seeing it differently. So I think, like I advised last time, government should just try and ensure that they're not in a hurry to pass the bill, get into educating the public. The vulnerable areas, those who feel vulnerable, like the North, unfortunately, like I said, I'm so disappointed that at this time of our national life, an issue will come up and we are talking about North and South being promoted by our politicians, unfortunately, and it's not good for us.
Because two major states are already benefiting from the current VAT arrangement. We look at Lagos and Rivers State, by virtue of headquarters of, multinational companies, organizations, and all of that. So, by virtue of that, they get to enjoy all of that. So, Babagana Zulum said that he will try as much as possible to, run around lawmakers to reject the bills. According to him, that this bill will lead to poverty, hunger, and hardship. And then, Governor of Nassau State, Abdullah Sule, said that they are not against the removal, that the governors are only against the removal of VAT from the Federal Account Allocation Committee, concerning that the 60% formula would not work if the VAT is calculated based on the derivations and not consumption. So the concern about derivation and the sharing formula earlier that is really, really sparking all of that concern is the major one, because from the arrangement that we have, the current arrangement we have, states normally use 50 to 30, 20 sharing ratio. 50% for equality, 30% for population, and 20% for derivation. And so if by the current VAT revenue sharing formula, the federal government takes 15% and state get 50%, while 35% goes to the local government. So that raised a concern about issues of this sharing and what it therefore may mean. But one may begin to ask, if that is the only concern they have and then that is being resolved, would there be any need for that, the old total reforms of these bills?
Yeah, there's actually need for the bill in itself, because, like I said, many Nigerians are not paying taxes. We're not paying. Forget the money, and that's why we're having this multiplicity of taxes here and there. This one will come up with a tax, this one, and nobody questions. What I'm saying is that let's bring those who are supposed to be within the tax regime into the box. When you capture them, you can now begin to design, every other thing. It flows from there. What I'm saying is that the agitation for whether the derivative or the other one is unnecessary. Don't forget again that, this is one of the area that is a sore area that many people don't want to talk about. But do you know that, for instance, sales of alcohol, drinking of alcohol, there are so many states in this country that will not allow anybody to drink alcohol in their states. But when it has to do with tax regime, it's a money spinner. You understand? Such ambivalence is what some people are really not comfortable with. If you reject it, reject whatever procedure comes with it. The other day, our brother, Senator Sani, said that after all, whatever that is used to produce alcohol come from the north and all of that. I know it's a chain. The more reason why, if they are supplying these items or materials for the production of alcohol, then the more reason why they should not object when those materials are used to produce alcohol, which is sold a finished product. Are you getting me? So it's neither here nor there. But what is important is that, like I said, there must be disruptions for any meaningful progress to be made in this country. Genuine disruptions. It's not just about playing politics. You see, the problem is we play politics with everything. Are you getting me? And unfortunately, our politicians don't guide the way and manner they talk about things in this country. Do you know that an average young man on the street who didn't go to school, for instance, and then you draw his attention to the fact that, hey, this government is out to ruin us. He takes it to the bank. He's not in a position to ask questions. He's not in a position to go into finding out anymore. He has gone home with that information and it sticks with him. Even if at the end of the day it turns out not to be real. Many of them are no longer in a position to get such information. And that is the danger in some of the reactions we are getting from our political leaders. You react extraneously and people hear you, your followers hear you, and they believe you, and they go to town with it. Now, later, you will now realize that all your conjectures were not what they ought to be. Are you now going back to tell them, okay, I now understand? They will not do that, because that is the horrible thing about our system. They goof, or they say something that they ought not to say. When they now realize themselves, they wouldn't go back to retrace themselves and all that. So my advice is that no matter where you're coming from, the north, south, middle belt, or wherever you call, whichever group, let us be very careful
about the
argument. Because at the end of the day, Nigeria is ours. My prayer is actually that whatever proceeds that will come from this tax regime should be used for the people. There should be transparency in the administration. There should be accountability in managing the proceeds. Because like you know, and I said it here last time, we've seen a situation where they can bring a tax bill of 20 million to you now. But do you know that you'll be shocked that if you deploy your personnel and contact into the process, sometimes you end up paying nothing. Obviously, there's a compromise somewhere. It ought not to be so.
There are leakages.
Yeah, there are leakages. until we begin to plug those leakages, we would have created institutions, created avenues for people to come and feast on us again.
Yeah. And that's a worry of many people.
Yeah.
It looks at just like many reforms of this government.
Yes.
Issues of subsidy removal, the policy, and all of that. And that those that feels, the corruption in NNPC is just what should have been dealt with, not the issue of removing, subsidy removal and bringing hardship to the people. And now the tax reform. So there are this concern, this part of the Nigerians that are really rejecting all of that. That it looks at, well, anytime good things are introduced, yes, it has a plan. It has a targeted, a result or a projection that these moves is looking at. But the Nigerian system, sometimes the institutions and all of that, are not always ready to appreciate this development. And then at the end of the day, this concerns about, the effects and the impact it has, will be felt. So don't you feel that this concern is justifiable?
Well, it's justifiable to the extent that there is trust deficit in our system. I've said it again and again. When government tries to play some fast ones, and they politicize it and do all manner of, dribbling right here, front and back. What an average man on the street wants to hear is that this is the result. It's just like somebody who went to an exam. If you spend 10 hours writing an exam, what is the result of the exam you wrote? So, because of what happened as a result of the subsidy thing, like you said, what government ought to have done is, first of all, to plug the leakages within the NNPC, because that place has become something else. Imagine a situation where the refinery workers are being paid for years, donkey years, I say donkey years, for producing nothing. They have maintained their staff. They still go for foreign travels, pay them all manner of allowances, and they have never produced a single barrel of crude oil. Subsidy regime, it was terrible. Somebody was saying this the other time that all you need to do is just have your good contacts, and then they will give you documents and you go and receive some money, and then it's shared. But there's a worrying area there now, what I noticed recently. Why is the coming up of Dangote refinery and then the Port Harcourt refinery production or whatever, why are we not having the meaningful impact? I was thinking that as soon as we start local production, then we are going to start having a downward trend in the prices of these products.
They're saying it's dominant by dollar.
It's not a matter of dominant by dollar. My suspicion is that those who were party to the subsidy regime and who have perfected the art of consuming the outlets and whatever the subsidy thing is all about, have not closed their mouth yet. My suspicion is that their interests are still within the value chain. And until we remove their mouth from this chain and allow the real process to come up in real terms, we are not going to have any meaningful impact from whatever, even if we have 3 more refineries. Yes. They are already used to this money.
Because if we said Naira is dropping, I mean, yes, Naira is getting some strength, and the dollar is dropping and all of that. We have expect as we go to Philippines this morning, we can have a new prices reflecting.
That's what we're saying. And they should be, because we're talking of market forces. In the last 1 week, market forces should have come into play, and we begin to see a downward.
So market forces only comes when Nigerians have to pay high.
High. So my suspicion, and that's personal, is that those outlets that have opened their mouths to take our patrimony from the subsidy regime their mouths are still there. And the chain, the value chain, President as President constituted, is still taking care of them. There should be political will from our managers of the industry and from our government to say no to this and remove their mouth from there. And if they do that, the price will collapse.
Do you feel all of these reforms and policies of this government is making the government unpopular? Because it looks at, yes, you've mentioned the issue of trust deficits decaying in the country, and government has said in the other way, there is where we are taking this country to. We need to take this part. You've also said something that sometimes reformation requires, a lot of hard decisions taken and all of that, which is government looks at that giving towards that direction. But at the end of the day, where more concern to those that even shares the same sentiment of the school of thought of the president of the government, that there's a need to take this part, is that what if and how, what will be the end, at the end of the day, if all of that does not get to reflect on the lives of the people? Are you worried about that too? Yes, the reforms are nice and fantastic, but what is the end, and how would all of this be resolved? Because prices are getting high every day.
Yes.
Market things are not changing.
The World Bank, if I got it right this morning, said, I think another 1.7 million Nigerians have joined the poverty line now. Are you getting me? Yes. If we are having 1.7 million more Nigerians under the poverty line now, there's cause to worry. Because that means the policies of government, the impacts are not being felt. Let me tell you, the problem again is that the middle class is wiped out completely already. The SMEs, whatever they call them, the SMEs,
entrepreneurs,
many of them are collapsed. They can no longer cope with the cost of production and all of that. They can't. Now, and this tax regime thing, except government decide to do something concrete, because, like I said, in some states in this country, even pure water sellers are paying taxes. Barrel pushers are paying taxes. Are you getting me? Small shop owners are paying taxes. And you now ask yourself, how much are they really getting in a month or in a year that will warrant them paying such amount of money? In some states, schools have closed down, some private schools have closed down because of taxes. And of course, you know the implication of that. The moment a school that employs about, let's say, about 50 teachers, 100 teachers closes down, that means the 100 persons have become jobless, is it not so? And that is really what is happening. Government, in implementing whatever is the outcome of this bill we are talking about, should please, for God's sake, not just about collecting this money, but use it as an avenue to create jobs for people. Instead of allowing institutions and establishments and small businesses to collapse, government must take urgent steps to ensure that these institutions, the shop owners and the rest of them, they are kept afloat. Because that's the only way the gap can be bridged. If we continue on this downward trend, I can tell you, one day you just come out on your street and you'll be surprised you can't even walk out from your street because some people will pounce on you. A hungry man is an angry man. And it has gotten to that stage now. Government must come in handy, take some tough decisions without looking at the faces of who is involved. Take some tough decisions that will make the ordinary man on the street feel belonged. Because as it is now, people are just feeling like, in fact, it will be difficult for some Nigerians to even believe that they have rights at all as Nigerians. And it's not good for us, not even for government. It's not good for government too. No matter which side of the political divide you belong, if the president is making a mistake, it is Nigeria that is making a mistake. If the president is getting it right, we're all getting it right. So, all hands must be on deck. Politicians, government officials, ordinary persons on the street should begin to speak up and let government begin to weigh their, their feelings, weigh them on scales and begin to take decisions based on such whatever. We may not be able to get it right at once. That's another thing I want to say. We can take it bit by bit and we'll get to where we're going.
We'll take it bit by bit and we'll get to the destination. And what the government said, at the end of the tunnel there will be lights. See, and that's what Dr. Oke has really shared this morning. Concerned about tax reforms, the controversies, management of it. The government, on the other hand, are trying to resolve all of those interests. Asked the AGF and the Senate to meet so as to resolve all the gray areas in the content of that bill, which is still a major concern. Thanks so much. Dr. Oke Ezekwu is the legal practitioner. Thanks so much, and the public affairs analyst for joining us on the program this morning. Well, I want to turn our attention to Ghana. Elections have been conducted and ended as well. A lot of reactions still on the comparison between Nigeria's election and that of Ghana is still on. We connected from Belgium this morning by a global affairs analyst to look at the issues and the gray areas and concern after this short break. Please stay with us on the program. I'll be right back. To our country of Ghana. A lot of been said about the recent elections and concern about the outcome as well. And Nigeria led a delegation, INEC chairman and other observers to Ghana to also review the elections. And they have been speaking since after the conclusion of that elections. On the program, we'll be joined by colleagues who work at Global Affairs Analyst. He joins us from Belgium to extract this development and what it means for Nigeria and Ghana. Mr. Collins, thanks so much for joining us on the program. Very quickly, the elections in Ghana looks relatively peaceful. That those are really having a concern about how we can also keep behind if Ghana are getting it right. Very similar, how Nigeria can also get it right completely.
Thank you, Michael, for having me on the Global Morning. Ghana has consistently been getting it right. It won't be the first time that, election in Ghana, was experienced to be relatively peaceful. As a matter of fact, progressively. Don't forget that the gentleman who won the election of this weekend, John Dramani Mahama, was ousted 8 years ago. And what did he do when he lost the election? He immediately conceded and then, congratulated, the president. And what happened 8 years later, his opponent, the incumbent vice president, not even waiting for the election, commission to officially announce the result, he came out and, put a call across to John Mahama to congratulate him. And why did he do that? According to him, he did that because that was one sure way of ensuring that there is a stability in the country, because some of his supporters in different regions, particularly in the capital territory, were already, beginning to, cause some troubles. So he stepped in, as statements do, and congratulated the gentleman and told his supporters to retreat, because that is what happened. Sometimes you lose, sometimes you gain. So there is quite a lot for other African countries, Nigeria, for instance, can learn from such attitude. But I think that is a culmination of a process that was considered to be, transparent, free, and fair. So it didn't happen just on its own. It happened because the electoral umpire themselves were seen to have done their job credibly well, and so that built confidence and laid the foundation for accepting the result. So yes, Ghana has done well, and must be congratulated for sustaining the democracy that has been developing since about the early 90s.
All right, Mr. Collins, I want to ask a question. I know you said Ghana, they've been getting it right, but Africa, let's compare African countries with that of international countries. We saw that in the course of the electoral process, the presidential electoral process in Ghana, 4 were injured and 1 died. Do you think in Africa we have a long way to go when it comes to election violence? Because we see that happen in Nigeria, we see that happen in Burkina Faso, we see that happen in all African countries when it comes to electoral process. Do you think we have a long way to go in that aspect?
There is absolutely no doubt about the fact that Africa has a long way to go in sanitizing its political processes and its political systems. Now, one death anywhere as a consequence of electioneering is one death too much. And so when 1 or 2 persons die as a result of election, it should be condemned, and the focus should be on how to perfect the system. I happen to live in an environment where, even as a candidate myself, we do our campaigns up to about 24 hours before the election. That is when we now say this is a campaign stop. Now, in that period of the campaign stop, you won't believe what happens. As a candidate myself, I meet up with people, even from the opposing party, for a drink. And then, we make fun of how we have carried out our campaigns, and we now say, well, it is now up to the voters. In the morning, we simply get up from bed, dress up, go to our polling unit, count our votes, talk to the press, and then retreat home, and then, begin to await the result. That is how it should be everywhere in the world. So Nigeria and other African countries, of course, have a long way to go in reaching that level where there is a mutual respect, where rule of law is allowed to take its course and election conducted peacefully.
All right, let's take a look at politicians jumping ship. We look at the Ghana process whereby they stay in one political party till the end of that election, compared to Nigeria where you see an APC member jumping ship to PDP or ABGA or other political parties. Can we do a little comparison when it comes to these two countries, when it comes to that aspect?
Jumping ship happens everywhere. I mean, to borrow your term, now, yes, carpet crossing in politics is indeed a reality of politics everywhere in the world. Of course, we can talk about scale in terms of, how often it happens in Nigeria and how often it happens in other places. I mean, I've seen colleagues here in Europe who, for instance, are colleagues in the Green Party. And one thing or the other happens because no political party is kind of immune from the vagaries of politics. So you will always have disagreements. But of course, the way you settle them makes the difference. So I've seen people who somehow experience some sort of ideological shift and no longer align with the position of the party. And so, instead of crossing carpet, some do, some still cross carpet, but the vast majority of them simply say, no, I can no longer identify with the ideology of the party. And so what it means is that my days in politics are over. They step out of it because there are other things to do, quite apart from politics, to be able to affect the community and make the changes that you desire. But you see, all of these are based on ideology. So the question you ask yourself is, do we have clear-cut political ideologies in Africa that invites people into politics and says, yes, this is what I believe in, and this is the reason I am getting into politics? It doesn't quite exist in most of the African countries. In the places where it exists, Ghana as a marginal example, you see that people stay in one party and they stay there for life. Sometimes there are, shifts like they happen out here in the Western Hemisphere, but the degree, the scale is much less. So it all boils down to ideology, lack of, opportunism, and then, as a matter of fact, being selfless. You are into politics to make a difference. And so that should be the driving force. So where that is lacking, carpet crossing is then, very much on the high side.
The ruling political party candidate, Bariwa, said, the people have voted for change at this time and we respect the decision with all humility. That was part of his conceding speech earlier. That those are really having a concern. In Nigeria, for instance, we once witnessed that in 2015 when Jonathan said, look, no blood of a Nigerian really deserve in respect to my ambition and the sacrifices that I have to make. So, whereof how tense in elections in Nigeria have become so recently, we look at the fact that recent elections in Nigeria is marred with a whole lot of irregularities, people not really having confidence on the institutions or the election umpire. In Ghana, you also earlier you stated that the candidate conceded defeat. The electoral umpire are yet to even confirm the result and all of that. But based on the transparency, there was no issues of IREV or BVAS failure or the technicalities, irregularities we often have in Nigeria. So it looks clearly that it's still a major concern that we must pay attention to. Nigeria have allocated so much to our elections. We've seen how much we allocate for preparations of election. But at the end of the day, we see political parties running to court, mounting pressure on our judiciary, and which is not likely the same in Ghana. So if the candidate, the ruling party, for instance, had to concede defeat, it means that it's a peaceful ambience. And he's also sending a signal to the international community that Ghana is relatively peaceful foreign direct investment and all of that. Do you feel that is something we must pay attention to, especially to INEC?
Oh yes, absolutely, absolutely, and I mean the conversation around that, around sanitizing the electoral process, but also electioneering itself, making it less cumbersome, less money focused, making it affordable for as many people as possible, and ensuring by doing so that it attracts that politics attracts the best in the society. These are the sort of things Nigeria need to work on and focus resolutely on, because until that happens, politics in Nigeria will continue to attract the wrong kind of people. Quite many people, decent people that have things to offer, will continue to stay away from politics, because they do not want to be part of that do or die affair. Now, one of the places to start is when you say that INEC, Independent National Electoral Commission, is independent, you truly have to make it independent, rather than scheming things in such a way that the incumbent president actually has a lot to say about who becomes the INEC chairman, and then they have one way or the other to influence appointment into key positions in the INEC. So those are the sort of things that actually culminate into the crisis that we have, emanating from the way INEC conducts its business. So the independence that is in INEC's name has truly got to be reflected in the way that the commission is constituted and the way it is run. So financial independence, for instance, is also very, very critical in reforming INEC. So these are bits and pieces of places to start from, and then ensuring that the INEC rules are respected. For instance, issues of primaries and vote buying and so on and so forth. INEC cannot afford any longer to look away when there are credible allegations in this area. Now, if it means that the law is not adequate enough to capture some of these things, that INEC's hands are tied, well, get them reformed, get the law changed to be able to give it that true independent character that it means to operate in a credible way.
All right, Mr. Collins, let's look at issues of vote buying. In Nigeria, we find ourselves having that particular issue because of the economy. The issues around the world when it comes to high cost of living, inflation, removal of subsidy, lack of unemployment. All of these things are put into place. And that is why some citizens actually opt for the position of vote buying, because that will actually ease a little bit of stress that day, selling their birthright. It doesn't matter if the person is competent or not competent, as long as he has something to give in return. At that point, I would definitely sell my vote. The individual will sell his or her vote. Now, we didn't see that in Ghana. Now, how do we curb this many, comparing what played out in Ghana? Because we didn't hear anything of vote buying. We didn't hear anything of high violence on the day of election. We didn't hear of anyone saying the opposition party has done this or done that. We didn't hear that. So let's do a little bit of comparison. What's your take on that aspect?
My take is that we need to look at the situation holistically. Now, could it be that the Ghanaian voters are more well off than the Nigerian voters? In other words, that the Nigerian voters are more financially vulnerable than the Ghanaian voters, such that the Nigerian voter, the young people, and even the old people that they go to share bags of rice and salt to, that they are more impoverished than the Ghanaian voters. No, that is not the case. So then you have to start looking at other factors. And those factors then have to do with voter education, mentality and mindset. And so, in the end, and then also, you need to look at law enforcement. What happens in Nigeria when people, fall foul of, vote buying, both the person on the demand side and the person on the, receiving side? What happens to them? In Nigeria, probably they look the other way, so people don't see the consequences of some of those infractions that they do to electoral process, and so they get away with those. Now, a few years back, this is a bit funny, but I'm going I'm going to tell you the story. A few years back, I was in Owerri, southeast Nigeria, to address a group of young people. One of the questions that one of the youths asked was exactly what you just asked me, in terms of, okay, election is around the corner. I don't have money, I don't have a job, I even have a master's degree, and then a politician comes, gives me money and asks me to vote for him. Why should I reject the money? I told him very clearly that it would be stupid of you to reject the money. Take the money, but keep your conscience. Because ultimately, it is only you and your conscience that goes into that voting booth. As a matter of fact, the one that gives you money is the one that you should never, ever consider to vote for. But it will be stupid of you to reject the money, because that money is your commonwealth. So take the money, but vote your conscience. Now, if it begins to happen more and more, and politicians are seeing that they are not succeeding in using their money to buy votes, I think it will begin to stop. I recall also a visiting politician, visiting us out here in Europe. We were having a conversation around the same issue that three of us are conversing on now, and he told me that at that point in Nigerian history, that the courts are actually beginning to award victory to the true winners of election. And so they, as politicians, are now beginning to question the sense of actually spending millions of naira to be able to, buy victory when the court can actually overturn, such a victory. So it will be better for them to actually do more to campaign organically to the voters while in office, do a lot, leave legacies, and therefore make themselves credible for re-election. Those were the conversations at the time. I'm talking of about, 10, 12 years ago. But, the last election, what we saw was a retrogression, where the perception is very, very high that the election of 2023 was sold and bought. And the court had quite a lot to do with that. So you see, there is quite a lot. There are quite a lot going on, and Nigeria, needs to buckle up.
All right, I mean, as we begin to wrap up, let's look at Ghana-Nigeria's relation. John was a former president of Ghana, so this is a comeback, a re-election again to start a ship. So, oftentimes we've seen recent issues and concerning Nigeria and Ghana. What does it really mean? So you've been in the field of foreign affairs. So what does it really mean? What's in for Nigeria, and how do we begin working together with John and President Tinubu?
Well, for a start, the president-elect John Dramani Mahama lived and worked in Nigeria. As a matter of fact, studied in Nigeria as well. So there is a bit of Nigeria in him. And, I must say that, part of who he is today was imbibed, was formed in Nigeria because Nigeria identifies with him as one of us, having lived and worked with us. That's number one. Number two, Nigeria and Ghana are like, twin brothers in the sense that Nigeria has as its foreign policy thrust a focus on Africa as the nucleus of its foreign policy, and so Nigeria focuses on strengthening Africa, and from that position of strength, actually face the rest of the world. And Ghana remains a very, very critical ally of Nigeria in achieving its foreign policy objective. And as you know, foreign policy goals are not standalones. They are tied to domestic realities. So, Nigeria and Ghana strengthening their relationships actually means that Nigeria, it pays off to Nigeria in terms of strengthening of its domestic policies. And of course, trade is a very, very important factor, whereby Nigeria and Ghana, with the strengthening of democracy in Ghana, that Nigeria can work better with them, share experiences, and transfer good practices, and so on and so forth. So yes, Ghana remains a critical partner of Nigeria, and stability in Ghana means a lot for Nigeria, and I hope that Nigeria can learn from Ghana in terms of political stability and sanitization of its...
All right, Mr. Collins, with all that you've said, now we now know that we have a bilateral relationship because the president-elect was actually schooled in Nigeria, so he knows everything about Nigeria and, of course, Nigerians. Do you think there's a collaboration soon on how to curb the issues in which we have in the country when it comes to insecurity, when it comes to food inflation, and the economy in general? Do you think there'll be a collaboration on how to curb all of that for both countries?
Well, yes. The issue around intra-Africa trade has always been on the agenda in terms of more business transactions taking place between Ghana and Nigeria. I mean, we should be set to see more of that happening. One thing that can happen a lot more as well is, the acceleration of the free movement of, skills and all of that. Take, for instance, Nigeria has quite a lot of skills around research and development. Nigeria is less, in cocoa production. Ghana has much more of it. So I believe that a consortium could always be formed in specific areas where Ghana gives what it has and Nigeria gives what it has. A symbiotic, relationship between them. Now, there will always be crises. Take, for instance, the alleged, harassment of Nigerian business people in Ghana, and some sort of protectionism practices that Ghana had put in place to actually skim Nigerian traders, out in businesses in Ghana. There will continue to be conversations, between both countries bilaterally to ensure that such things, cease to happen, so that they, continue to see themselves as friends and allies, brothers and sisters. So yes, there is scope for more to happen in terms of strengthening their relationship, both politically and business-wise.
Well, that will not still end the war between jollof rice and Afrobeat between Ghana and Nigeria, which is still a very continuous war between Nigeria. Well, a lot of takeaways and lessons to get. Thanks so much, Mr. Collins Nweke, Chairman Emeritus Nigerians in Diaspora in Europe and Foreign Affairs Analyst. Thanks so much for sharing so much time with us on the program.
Always a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
All right, everyone. A lot of, concern comparing Nigeria and that of Ghana is still ongoing. But then we still have our own lessons, our own things to deal with when we know that we are still in a track of getting things done. Democracy is still existent. So
very true.
We both got independence in 1960. So if the countries are doing better, Nigeria should get better. But then those are feels our population is giving us a headache, over 200 million people and a country of 33 million people. So how do we manage all of these interests? But those are still argue. We have the resources. We are blessed. We
exactly. Yes,
so
we are.
If it's well managed, things can go down in this country equally.
The most important thing is our leaders. The leaders have a big role to play when it comes to all of these interests that we've talked about, whether population, whether our mineral resources. We need good leaders in order to actually bring this to a halt, to move us forward as a nation and, of course, as Nigeria. Well, let's quickly go on a very quick break. Global Morning continues shortly. Stay tuned. Do not go anywhere.
Global Morning is your top morning show here on Global Television.
We bring you fresh news updates daily while delving into a variety of current affairs and topics.
Global Morning aims to deliver newspaper review, latest news with experts on key global issues.
And at the same time, keeping you well informed about important events, both national and internationals.
Global Morning serves as a valuable source of information, helping viewers like you start your day well informed.
Stay connected from Mondays to Sundays to a wide range of the latest news making rounds on Global Morning.